Chapter 1, The Forbidden Bloodline. Before ancient Israel, before Babylon, before the flood drowned the world, there was a secret war. Not a war of armies, but of bloodlines. Genesis 6:2 says, "The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took them as wives, whomever they chose." What followed wasn't love, it was genetic sabotage. The offspring of this union were Nephilim, giants, hybrids, abominations. Genesis 6:4 continues. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. But these heroes weren't noble. They were predators. They corrupted creation, defied heaven, and brought unspeakable violence to the earth. The book of Enoch calls them evil spirits who shall oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth. Sound familiar? It should, because many believe the demons that roam the earth today are the disembodied spirits of these very beings. This is not mythology. It's not Marvel. It's biblical history, hidden, buried, and nearly erased. And before we go further, if you're drawn to truths the modern church won't touch, like share and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We dig deeper, darker, and more biblical than most dare to go, because what happened in Genesis wasn't a romance. It was a hostile takeover of the human genome, a satanic strategy to corrupt the bloodline and stop the birth of the Messiah. But God fought back. With judgment so severe it wiped the earth clean, and still, the Nephilim would return. Let's go there next. Chapter 2, They came back after the flood. The flood wasn't just a reset, it was a reckoning. God didn't just drown out sin, he wiped out a polluted race. Genesis 6:9 tells us that Noah was perfect in his generations, a phrase many scholars believe refers not just to moral purity, but genetic integrity. Noah's bloodline had not been defiled, but here's the mystery that haunts scholars and theologians alike. If the Nephilim were destroyed in the flood, why do they reappear? In Numbers 13:33, the Israelite spies report in terror. "We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Enoch come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." This wasn't metaphor. These were giants, actual towering beings that made hardened warriors tremble. So how did they return? One theory is simple and terrifying. The sons of God came back. Fallen angels once again descended and repeated their genetic rebellion, giving rise to post-flood giants like the Anakim, Rephaim, Zamzumim, and Emim, tribes that haunted the Promised Land. Another theory is darker still. Some Nephilim blood may have survived through the wives of Noah's sons, carrying corrupted DNA into the reborn world. Either way, the Nephilim were back, and this time they were in the path of God's people. Why did God command Israel to utterly destroy certain tribes, men, women, and even children? Because they weren't fully human. Deuteronomy 2 and 3 give chilling records of wars against these hybrid nations. King Og of Bashan slept in a bed over 13 feet long. Goliath, the Philistine champion, stood over 9 feet tall. And he wasn't the only giant slain by David's men. The post-flood Nephilim were fewer, but no less dangerous. And their presence wasn't isolated. They had infiltrated territory promised by God. And today, their legacy is far from buried. Chapter 3, Giants Among Men, Ancient Accounts and Skeletons. If the Nephilim were real, where are the bones? That's the question skeptics love to ask, and it's a fair one. But the answer is not that simple, and maybe far more disturbing than anyone expects. Let's start with the fact that giant skeletons have been reported all over the world. In the 1800s and early 1900s, newspapers across the United States, yes, mainstream publications, carried story after story of massive bones unearthed in burial mounds. Some reported femurs over 3 feet long, skulls with double rows of teeth, skeletons up to 12 feet tall. Many of these finds were reported to the Smithsonian, and then they vanished. In fact, according to whistleblowers and researchers, the Smithsonian may have destroyed thousands of giant skeletons to preserve evolutionary theory and suppress biblical truths. If true, This would be one of the greatest cover-ups in archaeological history. But it's not just America. In Peru's Paracas region, elongated skulls were discovered, unlike any human cranial shape. In Sardinia, legends of giants align with unexplained tombs and bones. Even in the Middle East, tales of ancient warriors facing off against titanic beings echo the Bible's accounts. And then there's the Book of Enoch, excluded from most modern Bibles but preserved in the Ethiopian Canaan. It goes further. And the giants consumed all the produce of the people. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. Enoch 7:4. Cannibalism, bloodlust, a generation of monsters roaming the earth. Why hasn't Hollywood made this movie? Maybe because it's not fiction. The evidence isn't just buried. It's been intentionally erased, classified, or discredited. The question is, why? Who benefits from hiding the history of the Nephilim? Next, in Chapter 4, we'll explore what might be the most chilling truth yet. Chapter 4, The Spirits of the Nephilim, Demons Among Us. What happened to the Nephilim after they died? Their bodies perished in the flood, but the Bible and extra-biblical texts say their spirits did not return to God. They were unnatural, a hybrid abomination, born of fallen angels and human women. They had no place in heaven nor on earth. These restless, violent spirits were cursed to wander. They became the demons. Not some poetic metaphor, not tortured human souls, literal disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. That's what the Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and the early church fathers believed. Now the giants who have been born of spirit and of flesh shall be called evil spirits on earth. Enoch 15:8. Let that sink in. The demonic entities tormenting humanity, possessing the vulnerable, whispering blasphemies, seducing the world through dark knowledge. They are the Nephilim spirits, seeking bodies once again. This explains their obsession with infiltration, through occult rituals, through false religions, through technology that mimics God's power, even through the modern UFO deception. Why do alien abduction accounts mirror demonic possession? Why do so many cultures speak of star beings, hybrid offspring, and gods descending from heaven? Because the Nephilim never left. Their spirits still stalk the shadows. They hate you because you bear the image of God. And they will do anything to reclaim flesh and return to power. But the story doesn't end here. In the next chapter, we'll expose how modern science may be unknowingly reopening the gates to the Nephilim. In labs, through DNA, and even artificial intelligence. Chapter 5. Nephilim 2.0. Are we recreating the days of Noah? Jesus warned in Matthew 24, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." But what exactly were those days like? Genesis 6 paints a disturbing picture, a world overrun by hybrids, corrupt in every way, filled with violence and genetic pollution. Mankind's bloodline was under siege. Every thought of man's heart was only evil continually. And today? History is repeating itself, not in scrolls but in science labs. CRISPR, gene editing, synthetic biology, transhumanism, artificial wombs, animal-human chimeras. We are witnessing a genetic Tower of Babel, an open rebellion against God's created order. But here's the shocking truth few dare to say. We are once again opening the gates to the Nephilim. Scientists boast of creating post-human intelligence while quietly manipulating human embryos. Whose image are they building in the lab? God's, or something darker? Behind closed doors, rogue nations and billion-dollar black ops explore hybrid super soldiers and cognitive enhanced beings. And the media laughs, like they laughed before the flood. But someone isn't laughing. The ancient texts, especially the Book of Enoch, warned that fallen angels taught forbidden knowledge to mankind. Weaponry, sorcery, astrology, and genetic manipulation. Sound familiar? What if those same spirits are once again whispering to modern man? Only this time through code, circuitry, and gene splicing. And what if the beings behind the so-called alien greys are not from another planet, but from another dimension? From the pit, they shall beg men for flesh. jubilees. This is Nephilim 2.0, a revival of the old abomination wearing a new lab coat, and the world is sleepwalking into it. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into evidence of Nephilim survivors after the flood, and how ancient giants reappeared in the Promised Land. Chapter 6, After the Flood, the Giants Return. If the flood wiped them out, how did the giants come back? That question has haunted theologians, archaeologists, and truth seekers for centuries. Genesis 6:4 leaves a cryptic clue. There were giants in the earth in those days and also after that. After that. Those last three words, and also after that, are the key. After that means after the judgment, after the reset, after the ark had landed, and yet they reappear. After the flood, names begin to appear, not just legends but lineages. Anakim, Rephaim, Zamzumim, Emim. These weren't just folklore, these were dynasties of destruction. The Israelites didn't just face tall enemies, they encountered monstrous hybrids, so massive that the spies sent into Canaan returned trembling, saying, "We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them." Numbers 13:33. Og of Bashan ruled an entire region and slept in a bed over 13 feet long. Goliath wasn't even the largest, he was just the most famous. David's mighty men would go on to kill others, Ishbi-benob, Saph and Lahmi, all descendants of what Scripture simply calls giants. So where did they come from? Some believe it was another incursion, fallen angels once again violating divine boundaries and mingling with women. Others suggest the corruption slipped aboard the ark through the bloodline of a daughter-in-law. Nephilim DNA, hidden but not destroyed, possibly through one of the wives of Noah's sons. Whatever the origin, they were there, after the flood, after the judgment, and still opposed to God's people. Why did God order the complete destruction of certain Canaanite tribes? Critics call it genocide, but what if it was surgical warfare to protect the Messiah's bloodline? What if these beings weren't fully human? The conquest of Canaan wasn't just military, it was cosmic, a war between seed lines, a holy invasion into Nephilim-occupied territory, and that war never fully ended. Next, we expose their burial grounds, cover-ups and modern discoveries that point to a very uncomfortable truth. Chapter 7, Unearthed Evidence, Giant Bones and Government Secrets. For centuries, whispers of giant skeletons unearthed from American burial mounds, desert caves and remote valleys have haunted the edges of archaeology. Reports dating back to the 1800s describe humanoid remains 8, 10, even 12 feet tall, often with elongated skulls, double rows of teeth or 6 fingers and toes, just like the giants described in 2 Samuel 21:20. These weren't fairy tales. They were published in newspapers, journals, and even Smithsonian field reports. But where are these bones now? Vanished. Stories abound of the Smithsonian Institution confiscating remains and burying the evidence. In 2014, a whistleblower lawsuit even accused the organization of destroying thousands of giant skeletons in the early 1900s. Was it to protect Darwin's theory of evolution, or to suppress the truth of Genesis 6? Even today, discoveries of massive femurs or oversized skulls are quickly written off or quietly removed from public record. Photographs disappear, excavations get shut down. In Peru, Malta, Sardinia and the American Midwest, all the same pattern. Giants found, giants erased. Why? Because if the Nephilim were real, then so is the war between heaven and hell. And the Bible isn't just a spiritual guide, it's a literal record of cosmic history. We're not done yet. Next, the final chapter. Where are the Nephilim now? And what's coming next? Chapter 8. Modern Echoes. Are the Nephilim coming back? Jesus said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." Matthew 24:37. Think about that. In Noah's day, the Nephilim walked the earth. Corruption had infected the bloodlines of man, fallen angels had crossed the line, and God had to hit reset with a global flood. And today, we're seeing a return to genetic tampering, transhumanism, and spiritual deception unlike anything before. UFO sightings, alien abductions, hybridization experiments. What if these aren't aliens at all? What if they're the Nephilim, rebranded for the modern mind? Many respected Bible scholars, like Chuck Missler and L.A. Marzulli, have warned for years. The so-called alien phenomenon may actually be demonic deception, tied directly to the return of the Nephilim spirits. The book of Revelation speaks of demonic entities being released from the abyss, tormenting mankind during the tribulation. Revelation 9, 1-11. These entities aren't your average demons, they're organized, vicious, strategic. The Watchers were bound, but their offspring, the Nephilim spirits, never were. And now, in our lifetime, we may be witnessing the resurgence of this ancient enemy, hidden in plain sight under the labels of science, progress, and extraterrestrial contact. So we ask, are the Nephilim coming back? Or were they never truly gone? You decide. If this video opened your eyes, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden truths from Scripture and beyond. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a reveal. And tell us in the comments, do you believe the Nephilim are among us today? More is coming, so stay awake. The veil is lifting. Cheers!